Oh, George Masvidal. Do you guys want to know how many times I come over here? I sit down right in this chair and I get ready to tell you George Masvidal's story, and then I don't. I take it back. I zip my mouth. I don't do it. I knew George when George was a boy. When we were both boys. We were trying to come up through these smaller organizations. Bodog comes to mind. But we were traveling all over the world. Great experiences, but we're traveling all over the world, right? If somebody sees you travel, the things that you do when no one's around, I mean, it is the worst version of yourself, for sure. So, I'd be on the road with George Masvidal. I couldn't have been more entertained. But there's stories now. See, we were boys. Now we're men. He has children, just by example. So I don't know what part of these stories are allowed to live. And I just zip my mouth and I just move on. But I got to tell you, I miss young George. I really do. I think he's pulling off the long hair. I think he's pulling off the fancy shirts. But I think he pulled off the short hair with the neck tattoo in the aggressive style. First time I ever see this guy. He's 21 years old. Right? So when I tell you we're boys, we're just kids. We're not even fully matured yet. We're not shaving once a day, right? We're just kids. Trying to make it with a dream. But I'm sitting in a ballroom in Russia, St. Petersburg, Russia. The #1 suicide capital of the world because it's dark, like 19 hours a day. One fun fact that I learned while I was in St. Petersburg, sitting in this room, they got a ring set up. And we go there for a week. We're going to do 4 days of fights all day long. Report in the morning, leave at night. 4 days of fights. There was like 50-some matches that were going to go. Bodog was going to film this. The internet was a thing, but not quite a thing like it is now. Facebook was possibly a word, but possibly not. MySpace was big. Twitter did not exist. Instagram did not exist. Just for example, so you could go in and film 50 fights. You could go back into the kitchen. You could edit those, repackage it, and put it out to the world in 8 different programs spread over 2 months, and it would look fresh. You could still keep a secret back then. Vince McMahon, by example, if you ever went to a taping for Monday Night Raw, it would be 4 hours, and he would film 4 shows. Every Monday, he would film 4 shows. The next month is when those would be released. But when the internet came out, you could get those results to everybody. He's got to go live. I'm just sharing with you. It was a little bit of a different time. So George comes walking in. He's going to take on Steve Berger. Now, there was a thing for a meaningful period of time. It still exists to some degree, but for a meaningful period of time, if you were a UFC vet, if you could say that about yourself, but you were no longer with the UFC, you were in high demand. You were going to get signed instantly. Your face is going to go on posters and they're going to put UFC vet underneath it. You're going to have a beautiful placement on the card, probably the main event, unless there's another UFC vet. It's a big deal. Berger was a UFC vet. We knew who Berger was. I'd never seen this Masvidal in my life. And he was 21. I mean, he came to the ring. He looked like a skin. He was a kid. Berger's in the ring first. So we're in just a small ballroom. There was no audience. There was no fans even allowed. The audience that I speak of was just us fellow fighters with their cornermen waiting for their turn to go, so we had to sit somewhere and we sat and watched the fights. So Berger's in the ring. Try to picture this. This kid comes to the ring, and while he's in the check-in area, right? They're checking the cup and the mouthpiece. They're putting his Vaseline on. He begins yelling at Berger. He's on the floor, and he begins pointing at Berger and yelling at him. And Berger's a straight-up badass, but Berger doesn't know how to handle this. First off, Berger's a leader. Berger was a leader within our locker rooms. If Berger said to do something, that's what we went and did. He was a UFC veteran. We showed him this kind of respect, so he doesn't know how he's going to handle this 21-year-old kid that's talking trash from him from the ring apron. So he's got my attention. Goes out there, Masvidal's fighting Berger, gets on top of him. So they're in guard. Berger's in guard. Masvidal looks up. He's holding Berger down. He looks up and begins to have a conversation with the ring card girl. So he comes back to Berger and starts pounding. He pops up again, and then I believe he asked her for her phone number, right? I mean, like, this was theater. This was a show. But nothing like this had been done. This is the most unsportsmanlike piece of theater that's ever happened in the sport of MMA. And I turned to Matt Lindland, and I slapped Matt on the knee, and I said, this kid, we've got to get him in there with Nick Diaz. I just remember making that comment. Then all these years later ends up fighting Nate Diaz. But that's what I said to Matt Lindland. We got to get him in there with Nick Diaz. And not to mention, Nick Diaz was like 23 at the time. 22 at the time. Okay. Just one of my mini Masvidal stories. But I could go from there. I could tell you about the time we're in Trenton, New Jersey, on national television. Masvidal wins, take a microphone, points to his father in the crowd and says, I just want to thank my pops. He's on parole in Florida. He's not allowed to leave the state, but he snuck out just to support his little boy. Love you, Pops. He outed his dad. He outed his dad for breaking parole, but it meant so much to him that his father was there in the third row cheering him on. Like, these are real. I've got these stories, guys. I got all these stories back, and I'm bringing these ones to you because we have talked about these before. But now, I've got my precious little Masvidal. All my precious Masvidal stories, and I'm confronted with quite possibly my least favorite tweet I have ever seen. Now, what's on that screen, guys? That's Jorge Masvidal. That's Jorge Masvidal's back, side profile, on a beach holding a surfboard. And the text says, life's a beach, don't forget your towel. What? Life's a beach. First up, no, it's not. That's actually not true at all. That's the opposite of truth. Don't forget your towel. What kind of a gangster uses a towel? I gave up a towel in 1999. I have not used a towel since 1999 because I'm too goddamn macho for them. Quite frankly, I do this and put my clothes on. Like, don't forget your towel. I'm supposed to believe that Jorge Masvidal is a surfer? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Now, if they were selling anything here, I'm all in. If this thing is hashtag caption UFC 285, if we got anything marketable here, I'm in. George does a show that I believe is on Fight Pass, right? If he's tagging something in Fight Pass in this weekend and I got the debut of Anthony Cesar, whatever, I'm in. Does it say any of those things? It says life's a beach, don't forget your towel. Now, George, I guess, is in his version dressed like a surfer. Have you guys brought this up yet? See, it's very important that you see the picture so that you see my disgust. That's a disgusting beach. Do you see that seaweed and that litter? That's a disgusting beach. For a guy that lives in Florida, guy that lives in Miami, where the hell are all the people at? Goes up to a beach on the only day of the year that there's clouds in the sky, and he goes to a dirty part of the beach, and he's holding a board that I guess I'm supposed to believe that he rides. Now, he's wearing a hat. You don't surf in a hat, by the way. The entire caption says, life's a beach, don't forget your towel. He doesn't have a towel. Should I mention that? He's holding a surfboard. I don't get it. Then there's even an emoji attached, or two. Now, that's a bit feminine, in all fairness. The emoji game is a bit feminine, and there's like two emojis attached, but again, they're not selling anything. They're not directing me anywhere. This is the BMF. This is the reigning BMF. I'm to believe that the reigning BMF goes to an unpopulated part of a beach in Miami, part of Florida, where he lives, on a cloudy day, talking about don't forget your towel, but he didn't bring one. He's holding a surfboard while wearing a hat. By the way, he's got his iPhone in his pocket. Is the iPhone all of a sudden waterproof? He's not going surfing. I don't know that he does surf. Why is he telling us to surf? Why does he want us to think that we surf? I was perfectly happy thinking that he was a straight-up badass by way of Cuba. Why does he want me to think he's a surfer? I don't respect surfers. Why do you tell me life's a beach? Life's not a beach. Why do you tell me don't forget my towel? I'm too goddamn macho for a towel. Who exactly was George talking to here?